Hi, I'm Aaron Rabinowitz here for RedGiantTV.com. In this episode of Red Giant TV, we're going to take a look at some more compositing techniques courtesy of Michele Yamazaki. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, actually I don't, but I'll tell you what I'm thinking. Red Giant TV has been doing a lot on the subject of compositing lately, and that's true. Personally, I think it deserves a lot of attention. It's one of the hardest tasks to master, given how subtle it needs to be to look good. Motion graphics and special effects are cool and fun to look at, but at the end of the day, no one ever says, wow, that doesn't look anything like the flaming text I saw fly by my window this morning. Compositors have the difficult task of fooling the audience into believing that they're seeing something that was not affected at all, so it's all about subtlety. The truly skilled compositing artist can combine several elements into one composition and have no one notice that they weren't filmed together. And there are a lot of different things that you can do before, during, and after the keying process to ensure a solid composite. Now, as I mentioned, today we're going to hear from Michele Yamazaki, who you may know as the Vice President of Marketing at toolfarm.com, the largest reseller of plugins. But she's also got serious chops as a visual effects artist. So between dealing with plugins every day and her years of experience in the field, I think it's safe to say that she knows her business. Did I just say business? Well, she knows it. So much so that she recently co-authored a book with Jeremy Hankey called Greenscreen Made Easy, which is an excellent compendium on the subject. I read it before it was released and I strongly recommend it as it's full of tons, and I mean tons of tips and techniques for good green screening and compositing. Anyway, I'll let Michele tell you more.
Hey there, this is Michele Yamazaki of Tool Farm. Now you may have heard that I recently wrote a book with Jeremy Hankey, who is the editor of Micro Filmmaker magazine, called Greenscreen Made Easy. Now in the book I cover one of my favorite keyers, Red Giant Primac Keyer Pro, which we're going to talk about today in this tutorial. Now in this tutorial I'm going to go over the basics of using Primac Keyer and also Key Correct Pro in your keying work. I'm going to try and throw in some procedures that you may not know about, and hopefully it'll improve your keys and composites and inspire you to want to do more keying work. Now the footage I'm using is a girl playing video games, and it's courtesy of pond5.com. The footage actually comes with a black and white hole cutter that I can use as a Lumamat, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm going to be ignoring that. The background clip I'm going to be using here of this clock is also from Pond5. So I'm also going to be throwing in some terminology in this tutorial. In the book Greenscreen Made Easy, there's actually a very, very large glossary of terms if you're interested in learning more. The first term I'm going to go over is foreground plate. The green screen footage is also known as the foreground plate. The background plate, which here is the clock footage, is what goes behind the keyed footage. Another term that you may hear is clean plate. We don't have one of those here, but it's basically a green screen footage with nothing in front of it. Alright, let's get started. First, I'm going to bring my green screen footage into a new comp by dragging it over to this little icon for new composition in the bottom of the project window. This opens a new window that's exactly the same size and duration as my footage. I'm going to trim this clip because it does have that black and white Lumamat at the end. Now, an easy way to do this in After Effects is to go to my out point, press the N key, that's the letter N, to mark the end point of my work area, and then go to Composition, Trim Comp to Work Area. There are a few pre-process tasks that you may need to go through, a quick checklist. Denoise your footage, fix your jaggy or steppy edges, and even out your green screen. Now you may not need to do all these steps if you have pristine green screen shots, but let's be honest, you probably won't. The majority of the time the shots will have some problems, such as uneven lighting and noise, which is especially a problem with DV footage, or bad spill. Both Primac Keyer Pro and Key Correct Pro can help address some of those issues. Now this footage from Pond5 is pretty darn good, but there's always a little room for improvement. For example, let's take a look at the blue channel. It's always the noisiest in DV footage. Here's a little trick that will help your workflow immensely while you're keying or working with 3D layers or a number of other tasks. It's opening two comp windows at the same time. At the top of your composition window, pull down the menu and choose New Composition Viewer. This will open the exact same window view here. So grab the original tab and drag it to the right so that you have two comps side by side. Then change the other to RGB. This way you can keep an eye on both the blue channel and your RGB at once, or whatever channels you choose. To remove some of the noise, you can use the denoise filter, which is included with Key Correct Pro. It reduces noise temporally. Now After Effects also has a really nice remove grain plugin that ships with it that allows you to remove grain per channel. Now this is a nice feature if you're working with DV and have a noisy blue channel. It will completely depend on your footage, so you may want to try both tools for removing noise. Now, whichever you choose, just make sure that you use a light hand, because if you apply too much, you'll end up blurring your video and losing detail. You just want to remove the noise. Now, both PriMatte and KeyCorrect have a de-artifactor that will help you deal with DV and HD cam artifacting. Now, I've noticed that this really helps remove any dark edges that you sometimes get with DV footage. So check out this blue channel here and this edge. Now you see it, now you don't. If you have jaggy or steppy edges, the de-artifactor is also a nice way to improve them. The steppy edges make for bad keys. Now the last pre-process is to even out your green screen. KeyCorrect Pro has an awesome little plugin called Smooth Screen. Simply grab your screen color and make adjustments to make the lighter and darker areas of your green screen find a happy middle ground. The next step is to create a garbage mask. A garbage mask is simply a loose hand-drawn mask that's around your subject that will get rid of anything you don't want in your shot, such as cyc wall, lighting gear, rigging, cables, shadows, extra bits of green screen that aren't being used, and so on. Now this is going to speed up your keying process because the keyer won't have to process those areas. Now it's always a good idea to watch your footage play through a few times to get an idea of how your actor and camera moves, so when you're placing keyframes for your garbage mask, you know where you need to place them. My actor stays pretty much in the same place, so I get to skip this step. Hooray! I recommend checking the Roto Bezier box if you're using the pen tool to create your mask, because it will make your edges look nice and rounded. The mask should always be loose and feathered. You always want to have soft edges when you're compositing. So apply a feather of at least 20 or more. The shortcut for feather is the F key. One last thing, it's easier to see your edges if you have a contrasting color behind your footage when you key. Now I've made mine bright orange, pink also works. Choose whatever looks good to you. Alright, time to start keying. You thought we'd never get there, didn't you? In my Effect and Presets panel, I'm going to start typing PriMatte. As soon as PriMatte shows up, I drag it into my footage to apply it. Now nothing happens straight away, I just need to choose the color that I want to key out. And with PriMatte, it works a little bit differently than other keyers. You just need to click and drag around your green screen area to sample it, instead of using the eyedropper like other keyers. Select background is the default, so I just need to click on my green screen, but there's some problem areas in the foreground and matte that I can easily fix with PriMatte. I'm going to switch the view from comp to matte so I can see the alpha channel. I want the channel to look as black and white as possible, with just a bit of shade of gray in areas that are more transparent. First I'll click Clean Background and click in the gray areas in the background to remove them. I like to take small chunks at a time for a more accurate result, and zoom in if you need to. Remember not to worry too much about areas outside of your garbage matte. Repeat this process for the clean foreground. You may need further refinement, and PriMatte has alpha controls that you can adjust gamma. The gamma histogram works just like levels in After Effects and Photoshop, so it should seem very familiar. The alpha cleaner allows you to plug holes and specks in your matte. Again, remember to use a light touch here. You don't want your edges to become rough and jaggy. Now, if you have jaggy edges on your matte, try going under Correction and using the Defocus matte. Now, lastly, you can adjust the denoise and smooth screen effects that were applied in the pre-process stage. Sometimes making adjustments there will eliminate problems in this step. So once you have a nice clean keyhole, we're going to change the view back to comp and have a look. There may be some areas that need to be rotoed out, like the edge of the chair. I'm going to throw my background image behind my actress. Under the composite controls, you'll find Spill Killer. This is also a plugin included in KeyCorrect Pro. I'm going to set the color mode to green and crank up the strength. Now the green is reflected quite a bit in the chair and in her hair. Just adjust it until the green spill goes away, basically. Now I can put a light wrap on my foreground. A light wrap is an area that wraps around the edges of your foreground image, bringing in some reflection in the background colors and luminosity. It will help your composite look more like the foreground and background were shot together. In PriMatte Keyer, twirl down Composite Controls if you've closed it. If you don't have your background footage chosen, choose it now. Click the Enable checkbox. To see what you're doing here, you can change the operation to Wrap on Black. Now there's also a light wrap in KeyCorrect Pro. Finally, I'm going to put a bit of an edge blur on my foreground. I think the edges could be a bit smoother. I'll use KeyCorrect Pro's Edge Blur and set the blur amount to 2 and the edge width to about 4. I want to just soften the edges. Finally, the dirty little secret for compositing, Magic Bullet Looks. I'll apply looks to an adjustment layer above my foreground and background layer. Now this will save hours of tweaking the colors to get them to match, and I can give it a cool look to really give it some appeal. Well, that's it for me. This is Michele Yamazaki of Tool Farm signing out. Thanks!
Wow, that was a lot of information in very little time. Well done. If you want to learn more about Michele Yamazaki and her book, Greenscreen Made Easy, you should head over to toolfarm.com. Again, the book is absolutely worth the read. I haven't seen a better book on the subject of green screen compositing yet, and I read a lot, although these days I mostly read stuff like Goodnight Moon and What's Wrong Little Pookie, because they don't make compositing books for 9-month-olds. Although that does give me an idea for my next project. Anyway, if you want to try out any of the tools that Michele used, you can grab a free trial from the Red Giant software download page. And if you've been inspired to take the next step, we're going to give you a discount on the tools that she used, including Primat Keyer Pro, Key Correct Pro, and Magic Bullet Looks. Go to redgiantsoftware.com/promos to get this and other special Red Giant TV deals. Now, these are time-sensitive discounts. They don't last forever. All coupon codes expire 7 days from the launch date of each tutorial. So again, go to redgiantsoftware.com/promos to get the coupon codes for the most current Red Giant TV discounts. Once again, I'm Alan Rabinowitz for redgianttv.com. See you next time. What color is your screen? Is it blue? Is it green? Well, maybe not.